Good afternoon, board and stakeholders. This presentation is being done as our board, the Fort Bragg Cubs football or FBC football, considers making changes to its mission statement to more accurately reflect the organization and to provide us a more thorough roadmap on moving forward. While I know our board knows, for those stakeholders that maybe end up watching this video on why we made this decision, just a brief overview of our budget. This organization brings in about somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. About 40% of that is concessions at our games. The next 30% somewhere is usually around our registration fees to get children to play. Um, then the rest of it's split up pretty evenly between donations from the community, sponsorships from businesses, and then items like gate funds, tickets coming in, and then merchandise sales. To give you an idea how this video is going to go, I'm going to talk about where we're at in the strategic planning process and how we got to the point of making a change in our mission statement or a proposed change in our mission statement. We'll discuss what makes mission statements effective or how to come about an effective mission statement. And finally, we'll propose our new mission statement and break it down into um, the components that we put into it, hoping to give us that roadmap. Just a brief overview of the strategic planning process and what that means. Strategic planning involves creating a long term plan where we have goals, timelines, plans on how we're going to reach those goals and meet those timelines. Um, for our specific organization, we chose to pursue the 10-step strategic planning process. Right now, we're on step three. To give you an idea, step one was where we as an organization, our board decided that we needed to start strategically planning for the future instead of just working season to season. We made that agreement. We kind of had a collaborative session where we really put together a bunch of ideas and created a really sketchy roadmap of how we were going to get to the end of that 10-step process, um, and kind of some of the goals and inputs that everybody had. So we had at least a point to start. During that step one, we also identified a lot of the stakeholders that are involved in our organization and then asked ourselves the question, are we meeting the demands and the desired outcomes that these stakeholders are looking for, whether they be the player, the coach, the donor? Um, and then we kind of went and said, okay, how are we going to measure that? So that kind of completed step one. We decided to do it. We moved on to let's get started. Who should be involved? We kind of made a dedicated small committee. We got to step two. Step two is really about identifying what this organization has to do, right? We know we have minimums. We have to get kids on the field. We have to make sure that they have proper safety equipment. We have to meet state mandates in different areas. And that at least created that foundation of going, okay, we know we want to expand past that. This is where we can start talking about strategic planning. We've been successful at getting kids on the field and the proper equipment meeting minimum standards. How do we go beyond that? And so that brought us to the current step we're on and why we're here today, and that's clarifying the organizational mission and values. Um, One of the best ways we could look at to start that was by updating our organizational mission statement, which doesn't appear to have been updated since about probably 1993. And I don't believe it really drew a good roadmap for us. So, in this presentation, we're going to move on and talk about what makes an effective mission statement and how we can effectively use that. So, effective mission statements and their purpose and why they're so important to an organization. Um, One of the interesting things we found during our research on whether or not we should change up our mission statement is there's a lot of studies out there about the importance of mission statements to colleges and how it affects individuals getting into these colleges or who tries to go into these colleges or who donates to these colleges. And these studies kind of described it as a benchmark where mission statements, if they were clearly written and they could be understood by donors and students that that was what they were looking for, tended to encourage students and donors to gravitate towards those colleges. We also came across an interesting area of signaling theory, where it's a theory about how the college presents itself, combined with that mission statement and what that college represents, and almost like a sky high view of advertising and getting students to come to those colleges. So we considered that. We did find one of our early priorities based on some of those studies we had seen about how effective mission statements can really change how an organization looks from the outside and the inside. We also learned that considering our stakeholders and how they're going to look at this mission statement, how crucial that is to nonprofit programs and nonprofit organizations, because stakeholders can look at our mission statement and see that we're heading in the right direction. Again, looking on those college studies, that's going to encourage individuals to come into our program and to want to participate in our program. So we felt that updating our mission statement so that it could clearly be viewed by stakeholders who are crucial to the success of our organization is really important. So, what makes the development of a mission statement effective? Um, First, you have to have an orientation period, and this orientation period is where we decide who's going to come up with the mission statement, kind of what's involved with it, and how this process is going to work. We completed that already. It was kind of similar to the step one of the strategic planning process. The next one was component analysis. This is where we decided on the components that were critical to the mission statement. So our committee got together and we identified uh, participation is critical, inclusion is critical, stakeholder recognition is critical, safety, fun. And we started throwing all these words into a bag. And then we came up with a really rough draft of this mission statement. And we moved on to the next step in that effective development of a mission statement, where we started looking at communication analysis. So we wrote up this rough draft and then we read it and said, does it say what we intend for it to say? We looked at the words. Yes, we read it. And if another individual was to read this, are they going to receive the message that we are trying to put out? So basically, was it written correctly and was the grammar correct on it? That brought us to our next step, which was quantitative analysis. And while we understood what we were trying to put out in this mission statement, in this rough draft, we have to ensure that this mission statement sends the same message to different stakeholders who may be reviewing it, who may not have the same opinions or the same background and knowledge that we have. And so it's where we figure out, those connotative meanings behind the words and whether it's being interpreted correctly. And the way that we're going to do that, we're actually going to practice in today's presentation, is I'm going to present our rough draft and then allow you the moment to thoughtfully reflect. And then we're going to present why we had each component. And you can see whether how you interpreted it was the same way as we were trying to get it out. And that gives us our first baseline. Later on, we'll do more stuff where we'll send it out to stakeholders and have them provide the same opportunity. But this is why I think you put this in there. And the last one is an applicability analysis. Sorry about that. Applicability analysis, where we take this finished product and then we go, okay, let's throw some scenarios at it and see, does this mission statement walk us through those scenarios? So we can use current issues that we're facing and we can throw them at them and go, okay, if I take this current issue and I look at this mission statement, does it tell me um, does it give me an idea which direction which should we go, and is it kind of that lighthouse of how to get there? And we can also take future threats or even those what if scenarios and throw them out there. And we want to try to have a varied set and go, does this mission statement get us in the right direction? So FBC football doesn't currently have a mission statement. We do have a general purpose statement that's included in our bylaws. Like I said, I think it's pretty old. It's been a while since it's been updated. That general purpose statement is the general purpose of this organization is to inspire youth, regardless of race, creed, color, sex, religion, citizenship, or sexual orientation, or nation of origin, to practice the ideals of sportsmanship, scholarship, and physical fitness. The specific purpose of this organization is to familiarize participants with the fundamentals of football and cheerleading, to provide an opportunity to play the game in a supervised, organized, and safety oriented manner, and to keep welfare of participants free from any adult ambition and personal glory. And so that our previous general purpose statement, our mission statement, definitely has some components to it. It's talking about safety, protecting kids, inclusion, and while we agree with those, we don't know that it really draws us a roadmap for where we would like to head now. And there wasn't a lot of areas where we could measure and go, okay, are we reaching the goals of this mission statement? So next, I'm going to read you our proposed mission statement, and then we'll break out this video segment because I want you to have the opportunity, like I said previously, to thoughtfully reflect on this mission statement or proposed mission statement, and then we're going to tell you the components we put in there and why we put them in there, and hopefully see whether or not you are getting the message that we are hoping to convey. So our proposed mission statement is the mission of Fort Bragg Cubs football, hereafter referred to as FBC football, is to have participation levels in both cheer and football that meet or exceed the average per capita rates of participation in numbers, race, and sex when compared to the other teams in our league. All participants in FBC football, from players to volunteers, will participate in an environment absent bias or discrimination, where the most current industry standard safety precautions are pursued, and the enjoyment of the participants is solicited and prioritized. FBC football recognizes that they are funded primarily by community members, and all participants will conduct themselves in a manner which brings credit to the organization while also ensuring transparency and financial accountability with all of the organization's decisions. So, like I said, before we move on to talking about the first component, I would like you to take a couple moments to reflect on that. You can stop this video and see if what we hoped you got out of it is what you got out of it. I hope this first component is obvious. We know we want our program to grow and to be as big as possible, both for our advantage on the field and to get as many of our youth involved in this possible. But we also, this component allows us to have a measuring stick where we're getting data from the other teams in our league who are similar socioeconomic situations, who represent kind of similar per capita rates in other areas. And then we're using that data to go, are we being effective in how we're recruiting, and are we being effective in getting kids into the program? I also added in the point in there about race, gender, really because we know, at least, so you look at the city of Fort Bragg, where we're nearly 50% Latino, yet our Latino population only represents about 10% of our cheerleaders and our football players. So when we're doing our recruiting efforts and we're going out and we're spending our resources on these different ideas, we started the school lunches thing this year. Are we effectively making sure we're putting resources towards creating an organization that has the same per capita rates as other teams and that accurately reflects our community? Component two also provides us, it combines a couple things, but it also gives us a way to measure some stuff and to make sure that we can look back and ensure that we were following our mission statement as we were strategically planning and making decisions throughout the year, planning for the next year. We always tell our coaches in our coaches meetings our priorities are safety and then fun. Those are the top two ones. But if you look at our past mission statement, safety is mentioned in there, but fun or the enjoyment of the participants is not. And I think that's important. We want our kids to have fun, and more importantly, we also want our volunteers and our participants, our coaches, to have fun as well. So when we talk about, again, how are we going to measure that? Well, we're going to measure that because we're talking about industry specific standards. We moved over this year to using the National Football system for ensuring that our coaches have the safest tackling. That would be an example of going, okay, have we reviewed our standards for training, and are they to par with the organizations that are nationwide setting those pars? The same way, at the end of the season, we should get a participant survey out, and that participant survey should simply ask in one question: did you have fun this season on a scale of 1 to 10? In the same way with parents, did you enjoy this season? Coaches, did you enjoy this season? If not, what can we do to make that better? Um, we also chose to add in the bias and lack of discrimination into this one, while it was previously addressed. I also thought it was important to make sure that every participant feels comfortable while they're doing anything with this organization, whether they're working in our snack shacks or they're working chains in the field or they're our football players or they are our cheerleaders. So that was why that one was added in there. We combined component number three and number four into the last sentence of the proposed mission statement for a couple of reasons. Some of it was just for the readability, how we looked at it and thought, okay, this seems to read a little better. So component number three, we're talking about the conduct of our players, the conduct of our coaches, and the conduct of anybody that chooses to associate themselves with FBC football. This was addressed in our previous mission statement, but I don't know that the backing on the why was included in that. And the why included in this is because this program is funded 99% by community, whether it be through them registering their kids, whether it be through the donations we get, whether it be through our sponsors, whether it be through the money they spend at the snack shop. Those are all dollars that are coming out of our community and coming into us. And while someday we hope to have the goal of seeking some outside funding via grants and stuff, right now that's the reality. So, how do we encourage people to invest their time and money into our organization? Well, they have to be proud to be associated with it. And being proud to be associated with it has to do with the conduct. Other kids need to look at our kids that are out in school and see they are conducting themselves in a manner that is positively reflective of FBC football. Same way with our coaches. When our coaches are on the field, if they're out there screaming at the refs, and we have to figure out as a board whether to address that, we can go to them now and say, listen, is this positively reflecting on FBC football? That last part that we added in there, this is about gaining the trust of the community. We have a lot of dollars that come in, and we know in the past, prior to boards prior to us, that this organization was not completely transparent and that there was some, frankly, really poor financial reporting data. And we've worked this year to do that. But as this board changes over next year and new members come, we want them to know that the community that supplies 99% of our funding should also completely understand where every single dollar goes and how it's spent and really transparency in the moves this organization's making for the benefit of the community. So again, combine two different ones in there. Component three, the conduct of everybody that has anything to do with FBC football. And number four, transparency and financial accountability for how this board and this organization spends the community's resources that it's taking in. So, just a brief conclusion on today's video series. Again, I hope that this kind of let our stakeholders and our board members know that we are moving forward with creating a strategic plan to go beyond just a season at a time. And now we've recommended a mission statement that allows us to develop how we're going to allocate resources in order to achieve those goals proposed in the mission statement plan or the proposed mission statement. Uh, Next, with our board's approval, we'd like to push this out and start getting this out to some of our stakeholders and getting some feedback from diverse views, all the way down from our players and all the way up from our large donors, and taking that feedback back and moving on to those last couple steps of the effective developing an effective mission statement, where we talked about um, analysis and applying scenarios to it and making sure that the quantitative meeting was understood and that it's clear enough that anybody or all of our stakeholders can read it and understand it. So again, thank you for taking the time. I do hope that each of you will provide feedback from what your initial interpretation was, and that this was worth your time.